jumping exactly already to the documentation and continue, we can chit chat for like say hello and so on. So everyone, we are starting to stream. It will be recorded. Just have to warn everyone. If you don't want to turn on your camera, don't turn it on. If you don't want your voice to be on the recording, don't say anything, but you can still write if you want. We have a chat going on. So all the warnings said. With this, Lucas, you can feel free to greet people.
Yeah, and first I will start the recording.
Oh yeah, that's a good idea as well.
Just as a backup option.
Yeah.
Shouldn't hurt anyone. Yeah. Nice. Okay.
Oh, that's, you know what? My bad. I actually, no. That's okay. I thought that I haven't included the link to the call, but it seems like I did. I will just double check it.
Is my microphone okay today?
It feels okay, yeah.
Okay, nice.
Have you tried something new? Is it like new microphone?
No, but I always a little bit unsure because it's like an external microphone and it's very difficult to set it up in the menus of Mac OS and Google Meet and so on.
Yeah, like from my experience, the microphones which doesn't work very well are the ones which are integrated in the headphones and not with like a special handle with a microphone like a bar, but somewhere in the ears, somewhere there, which is like pretty far away from the mouth when once a person talks. So it catches all the voices from the room and so on and so forth.
Okay, I can show it actually because its cable is too short, but it's like a Zoom audio recorder that I power with.
Oh, you're
a
using it
USB
now?
cable. Yes.
That sounds really very crispy.
Okay, nice.
Yeah, this Zoom recorder is really cool thing. Yeah. But also even better that you can use it as an external microphone.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we have anyone in the call who want to say hello, feel free to do so. Abu is there. Arthur is there.
Yeah.
Arthur writes, hello from Frankfurt, Germany. Hi to Frankfurt.
Hi. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, it's a great idea. If you are not very shy, just post in the chat. Oh, Abu is speaking. Hi, Abu. How are you doing?
Hi.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. How you doing?
Amazing. One person speaks up. Last call last week, nobody actually spoke except of two of us.
Yeah.
Japongo is writing. Yeah, go on. Japongo greets us from Brussels. Was it Brussels? I already lost the picture. I think so. Yeah, it was Brussels. Okay. So Abu, if you are so, you are speaking. So tell us a little bit about yourself. What are you doing? What are your interests?
Yeah, my interest is just like I want to know more about coding and everything. So I'm actually very new, and I'm thinking of start maybe my career in this place, like in this area. That's why I want to learn a little bit of about this coding things.
Yeah, about the programming.
Yeah.
Do you have any specific framework or like language in mind which you want to learn, or you are uncertain as of now yet?
No, I'm uncertain of it now yet. Yeah. I'm just new here and see what's going on, and then yeah.
Okie dokie. A very great resource to start learning about the coding itself. I can recommend. is a free code camp. There are a few organizations or resources like this, but this one is really very helpful. They have like a ton of content you can tap into. It's called Free
Uh,
Code. Have you heard about
free
it?
free code. No, I never
Yeah,
heard
I will
about
post
it.
it into the chat as well. It's
Okay.
free code,
Hmm.
like coding, and camp
Yeah.
is like boot camp, you know.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and the extension is work.
Work. Work. Ah, cool. Cool. And what will I learn there? Like, are there specific, like from the beginning, like starting with HTML, CSS, and all these things, and
Yeah.
Java? Uh,
Yeah, they
cool.
have also a great course for web development beginners, you know, like what is HTML, what is JavaScript, like CSS and stuff like this. Those are the very basics. And once you know this, you
Yeah.
can move further to, like, for example, Node.js is a super popular framework on top of JavaScript,
Mm-hmm. Node.js.
which can be used for the front end, for the back end.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like if you're more like there another popular language and framework is Python, and there are many frameworks for Python as well.
Python. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Ah,
so on and so forth. But I would say these two are pretty popular for the web development and in general, I guess, like it's a kind of general programming languages.
oh, cool. Because
Drush,
I already started using HTML, so and CSS as well. So I want to yeah, be even better in this place, so I can start with JavaScript as well. So it will take a little bit time, but yeah, that's what I will do.
that's great. Where are you from, Mabo?
I'm living in Germany.
Oh, nice. Far
Yeah.
away from me? Like where is it?
I'm in Bayern, like
Wow,
Bayern
we
in
we are really
Nuremberg.
neighbors.
And you?
Yeah,
You?
I'm also in Bavaria near Nuremberg actually.
Nuremberg. Okay. I'm actually living in Nuremberg.
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
it's not a big surprise because our headquarters of the community is there, right?
Yeah. Ah,
Probably this
okay.
is how you discovered it.
Yeah. 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 Cool. Cool.
Very nice. We have a few more people here. Hi, Drashti, Victor. Hi, Drashti is asking, could we get the recording? Yeah, you can get the recording. It's actually it's recording now. We are also streaming right now. If you look up for Cloud Study Network on YouTube, you will find our channel, and you will find yourself there as well as right now in the ongoing live stream. So you can access the stream anytime. Also, after we are finished for today, you can watch it on demand anytime. That's your recording. Lucas, I hope you haven't left us.
I haven't left.
That's nice. That's always a good feeling, you know, that there is a someone who will save our day.
Will I? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I will be completely lost if you will leave me alone with React and stuff like this.
Yeah, but I'm also not a pro in React. I'm also just learning it.
Yeah, but if
Yeah.
we are both blind, then at least your one of your eyes is working at least, you know.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. But
Yeah,
do you want to introduce the
we
people too?
yeah, maybe I don't know. Should we like recap what has been done before in the previous two test sessions? This is the third one, I guess, if I'm not wrong. I think this is the third one. So we do it every week on what is it? Sunday, on Sundays, the same time, the same day. And we are in this session we try in this series we try to learn how to use Next.js, and Next.js is one of the most popular frameworks for the Jamstack, and as a buzzword. And Jamstack is a set of technologies that actually goes like J stands for JavaScript, A is the word gem, A stands for APIs, and M for markup. So it's a set of technologies which you can use together to create reliable and very like attack resistant and distributed web pages, web sites, web projects. And yeah, that's it. It runs on top of the of React. React is a JavaScript framework, it's a library as well. So that's why we are diving kind of a little bit deep into React within the last this is the third session. So we need to learn or get a good impression of React first before we switch to Next.js. And we just discussed before the stream with Lucas that probably we will need 1, 2, or maybe at most 3 takes more on React before we shift completely to the Next.js, what is our like final destination. And once we understand how to use Next.js, we can try to build our community homepage, which will be located at cloudstudy.net. This is our secured domain for now. We don't use it extensively yet, but we are looking forward to use it in the near future. Yeah, a lot of plans about the community website, like we can have membership going on there, and I don't know, some kind of functionalities there as well. We can run our events there as well, list them as well, at least, That's the plan. Lucas, do you want to recap what has been done before in the previous 2 sections, like which topics we touched upon?
Yeah, we did lots of things. We first started in the first session with JSX, which is kind of an expressive way to write HTML-like code inside of JavaScript, and yeah, a better way to combine JavaScript and HTML in one. And although it's not actually like HTML, it's a kind of way to write it, and with that you can declare specific elements that are called React elements, and that get compiled to normal JavaScript, which then renders in a virtual DOM, which is basically the object representation of what's on the screen in a web page in the browser. And yeah, then we also learned about components, which are a bit bigger way in React to build some kind of modularized components that you can reuse and recycle in your apps. And we learned that there is a way to build them in a stateless manner, that is with the function that you just basically write a JavaScript function that returns elements and accepts like properties. And then there is also like a stateful way to write components which have their own state, which is basically like which represents the data that a component holds, and that can be updated with a method that is called setState. And there are also some life cycle methods, like if a component gets first rendered on the screen, you have a mount method. And then you also have a unmount method, which is when the component gets destroyed. This is basically like the same terminology if you have like a hard drive you mount and unmount on a computer and so on. But that's basically, we had elements and how you write them with JSX, virtual DOM, which is basically how React determines what to render and when and what to update. And that gets then rendered into the actual DOM, then components, and then we had life cycle and state. That was in the earlier sessions, and you can also rewatch them to see what we done. And
yeah, especially if you want to fall asleep, you can like watch this two previous hours. That's a very great way like to fall asleep. And
but you can also, we are just following the React documentation to do this, and you can also do this by your own. I posted a link here. I also just posted on the YouTube live stream, so you can start there. And
well, you know what's interesting? For some reason, the link you posted on YouTube live stream is not showing. Oh yeah, now it's showing. Okay, cool. Yeah, I thought it was some kind of YouTube restriction by blocking the links, but it seemed to work. Nice. Very cool. So you can, everyone can follow, open this documentation. It's just a standard React documentation on their homepage, and you can follow it on your own, or like follow it with us at the same time. And feel free to interrupt at any time, like jump in if you have like some idea or want to comment. If you are like a little bit experienced with React, you are like a god in this kind of call, you know. This is like,
yeah. Or if you are experienced with other JavaScript front-end frameworks or similar technologies that use like methodologies or something that are similar, just raise your voice. And it's also interesting to compare this technology to others. I also found a lot of like equivalents in Flutter last week because of stateful and stateless components and lifecycle and all those things. It's actually the same in Flutter. Flutter, if you know it, is if you don't know it, it's a mobile app development framework. Sorry for that. Yeah.
Is it still like marketed as mobile because they want to also target like generic web and stuff like this right now?
Yeah. Okay. Right now, it's also available on desktop and web, so it's an universal app framework.
Platform agnostic. It doesn't matter like where you run it, right? It can be Android, iOS. Sorry, yeah.
But I prefer it for like native applications, not for the web. But I guess the web part of it also gets really stable and gets to be a framework that you should take serious for the web as well.
Okay, sounds great. If you want, we can jump into the documentation.
Okay. Yeah, I will just open the tab here, and we will start with handling events. And I think this is already the fourth session, isn't it? Or I don't know. Is it just the third one?
Could be. I thought it would be the third one, but it can be also the fourth one. We can actually start counting them, you know, just for the sake of knowing where we are.
Okay.
The last time we finished with as chapter number 6, handling events, right?
Yeah,
or was it conditional rendering? No, I think it was handling events.
Last time we ended with state and life cycle because we did components and then state and life cycle.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's actually the third session. In the first one, we did Hello World into the two JSX and rendering elements. Was our first session.
Yeah, we before we ended up going through the documentation, React documentation. We rambled around, trying to decide how to start and so on. So it was like live on record how we did it, and we ended up with this documentation, which is kind of more or less appropriate way to continue for now at least.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, we also started with the tutorial on the React website, which is here, but it's a little bit was too long and didn't like fully cover what we wanted to do. So now we are here at the docs and chapter 6, handling events.
Yeah, that's great.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, I will. I will be the narrator today, but we can shift this job from time to time, like
Yes.
between us.
Okay, that's great.
Handling events. Handling events with React elements is very similar to handling events on DOM elements. Okay, there are some syntax differences. React events are named using camel case rather than lowercase. With JS6, you pass a function as a event handler rather than a string. For example, the HTML button tag, and inside we see the text activate lasers and closing button tag. It's slightly different in React. Let's see how it looks in React. Button, the same button tag. Yeah, the onClick property looks different, like value of the onClick property, and the name of the onClick is also camel case. We can obviously see it here. The same text in between, it's activated lasers and closing button text. Okay. So yeah, we see the difference. So it's a name of the property which is written differently, and the value is actually in curly braces rather than just in double quotes kind of function call as we would have in HTML. Okay. Another difference is that you cannot return false to prevent default behavior in React. You must call prevent default explicitly. For example, with plain HTML, to prevent the default form behavior of submitting, you can write opening form tag on submit. We have some function here, console log, okay, which returns false at the end. Inside we have a button tag with type equals submit, and then as a value submit, okay, and closing form. Yeah, it looks like just a HTML code here. It's a form. Whenever you click on submit, it will log the message and return false to continue, I guess, right? And it will then submit as thought, as intended by HTML. Okay. In React, this could instead be a function named form. Inside, there is another function named handle submit, written in a camel case with the argument e. Inside, we have e prevent default. Okay, and then we go and log this information, like with the text you clicked submit. And another function is return, which will output a JS6, I guess, which will be form, opening form, and button in between, and then closing form.
Yeah, it's actually not a function, it's just the return tag, which has, like if you write a multi-line JSX, it's covered in, it's inside those normal brackets.
Okay.
And what we also learned last week was that components, you write them with an uppercase, a first letter. And so this is a React component with a function, or with a function that is like a call, used as a callback here inside it. Yeah. And E should be like the event data that you get when this event is triggered.
It looks exactly as a handler of which has an event details also inside as an argument. Okay, but it looks it's like more text comparing to just the HTML declaration. Okay, interesting. Here E is a synthetic event, whatever synthetic means. React defines these synthetic events according to the W3C spec, so you don't need to worry about cross-browser compatibility. Well, it's really nice. React events do not work exactly the same as native events. See the synthetic event reference guide to learn more. When using React, you generally don't need to call add event listener to add listeners to the DOM element after it is created. Instead, you just provide a listener where the element is initially rendered. Did you understand it, Lucas? What is synthetic event anyways?
Let me just read it out loud. Synthetic event. Okay. It's really long text with nothing really easy to understand here. Okay. I'm not sure. Maybe it's like just a wrapper around the official UI events in JavaScript. I guess that's what it is. And they wrap it to be like more compatible, better compatible with React and the framework itself. Yeah.
So I guess they also in the text we can see that they write something about the native events and which are not equal to the synthetic events. So probably native events is something like what would happen within the DOM. It's just vanilla JavaScript, and synthetic events is something probably what is created on top of it by React framework.
And
React
next sentence with add event listener, they tell you that all of the event behavior is like handled by React, and you don't have to declare or use add event listener. It's all handled by React.js. That's what I understand from those things. So, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, sounds interesting. Let's continue. When you define a component using an ES6 class, a common pattern is for an event handler to be a method on the class. For example, this toggle component renders a button that lets the user toggle between on and off states. So we see here in the code the class called toggle, which extends React component. Still doing the same mistake again. we have a constructor here which waits for properties, and then constructor function is being always called once you initiate an object or instantiate probably. So okay, then there's a handle click function written in camel case, which will handle the clicks, I guess, which will toggle actually the state of a button, I guess, or something like this. And there is another one function called render, which will output the HTML text, HTML code, where inside we have a button, opening button tag, some state description in between, and then the closing button tag. So we will be dealing with the button. We will be handling the state of a button, I guess, and something with the button, like the text in the button, the label will change from on and to off and back to on, I guess. And there is another function called React DOM.render, which will render a toggle element.
Yeah.
Toggle
Basically,
HTML.
the entire React component that is declared
Oh yeah,
with this class.
it just inserts
rendered,
a component. Okay.
Yeah.
So do we have a let's try it on the code.
Okay.
It was nicely prepared for us by the
Nothing
tutorial.
special here.
Yeah. It just switches between on and off.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So okay, I will switch back. So.
Okay, let's continue reading. You have to be careful about the meaning of this and JS6 callbacks. In JavaScript, class methods are not bound by default. Whatever it means, we have to discuss what it means. If you forget to bind this .handle click and pass it to onClick, this will be undefined when the function is actually called. Now we have to digest all this paragraph. What is meant there?
I guess they mean that you somehow have to.
They are referencing this in the constructor.
Bind this the callback that is declared here function should be bound. I don't know what binding actually is, but I guess you have to somehow make it available in that it also can be used in like JSX.
Binding is actually, I guess, when you attach a function to a handler or something like this, you bind them, right? You create a relation between them. An event with to a handler or something like this.
Okay, I have opened MDN web docs, which this is basic JavaScript. We should already know that because it's something you should be quite good in JavaScript to start with React, but I will just anyhow read it. The bind method creates a new function that, when called, has this keyword set to the provided value with a given sequence of arguments preceding any provided when the new function is called. Okay. Is this?
Yeah, there is also the comment you see on the top of this line. The binding is necessary to make this work in the callback.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. I now understand it. So if you wouldn't do this, like if you pass it to this JSX element, it doesn't have like the same namespace when it like when it was declared. So you have to explicitly bind it to have like the name space and all of what is in the toggle class available. Yeah.
It's just something what we have to keep in mind. This is just a requirement to handle the events. Okay. This is not React-specific behavior. It's a part of how functions work in JavaScript. Generally, if you refer to a method with opening and closing brackets after it, such as onClick equal and then curly braces, this handle click, you should bind that method. Okay.
Yeah.
If calling bind annoys you, there are two ways you can get around this. If you are using the experimental public class fields syntax, you can use class fields to correctly bind callbacks. Okay, let's see how to handle it if we are annoyed with binding.
Okay. What I see is that basically you have this kind of, how are they calling it, arrow function, and this is assigned to this class field called handle click. Yeah.
So this is how they bind? Interesting. This syntax ensures this is bound within handle click. Warning, this is experimental syntax. Okay. Yeah, it definitely looks super cool, but it's super difficult to understand for noobs like me, you know.
Now, what you do here is that you have a public class field, which is handle click, and then you assign something to it, which is this arrow function, which has no name. This is the function that we assign to it, and this is basically an arrow function, which is like how are you calling it, like anonymous function that has no name to it. So you, instead of declaring a function here, you have this public class field where you assign a function to it, which has no name. Yeah.
Okay. And here, every time we click this button, which states click me, it will just log some this is and then passing or description of the object, this object. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. This syntax is enabled by default in create in create React app. Okay. If you aren't using class field syntax, you can use the arrow function. This is exactly how you call it, right? In the callback. Okay.
Yeah. This is not a way to do this. Okay, interesting. And to clarify, create React app is basically a CLI tool to create React apps from boilerplates. Like you have different boilerplates from which you can create your React apps. Yeah. Really simple CLI tool. Yeah. Okay. You are muted, Karen.
Yeah, now I'm here. So we have an example here, a class which is called logging button, starting with a capital L, which means it's a component because and it also extends React.component, which has a function of handle click, which just logs some text there, and we have a render method here, which is just binding the on-click event to the handler, which is called our handler function called handle click, and the button is called click me. I'm wondering if there is an example, but it doesn't look like this, which we can try out on CodePen. So yeah, it looks like a simple functionality here, and they're using this arrow function as an example how to bind the handler to the event processing. Okay, interesting. Let's scroll a little bit.
Yes.
Yeah. The problem with this syntax is that a different callback is created each time the logging button renders. In most cases, this is fine. However, if this callback is passed as a prop to lower components, those components might do an extra re-rendering. We generally recommend binding in the constructor or using the class field syntax to avoid this sort of performance problem.
Okay.
Yeah, it just makes sense to do the binding within the constructor.
Yeah.
Okay. passing arguments to event handlers. This is the name of the sub-chapter. Inside a loop, it is common to want to pass an extra parameter to an event handler. For example, if ID is for row ID, either of the following would work. We have an example here, one HTML tag called button with an on-click field equal to, and here we have a GSX, I guess, right? Is it? Yeah. Arrow function, this delete row method, which passes ID, comma E, and the button is called delete row, and it's being closed as well. A similar button element with on-click function equal to this delete row dot bind, blah blah blah, also with the same name and so on. So these two lines, these two examples are equivalent, and use arrow functions and function.prototype.bind respectively.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Prototype.bind. Okay. In both cases, the E argument representing the React event will be passed as a second argument after the ID. With an event function, with the arrow function, sorry, we have to pass it explicitly, but with bind, any further arguments are automatically forwarded. Okay.
Okay, that's already the entire
handling events.
Yeah, chapter. Okay.
Conditional rendering, should we switch there?
Yeah, I guess so. Okay. If you want, how long is this chapter? Okay, it's also not that long.
Yeah.
If you want, I can do that.
Yeah, jump in.
Conditional rendering. In React, you can create distinct components that encapsulate behavior you need. Then you can render only some of them depending on the state of your application. Conditional rendering in React works the same way conditions work in JavaScript, using JavaScript operators if or the conditional operator to create elements representing the current state and let React update the UI to match them. Consider these two components. Yeah, we have a JavaScript function that is called user greeting, which has a parameter called props and returns a JSX expression with an h1 tag and welcome back. The other one is called guest greeting and is exactly the same except for that it returns please sign up. Yeah. So these are just two very simple stateless React components.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah. Okay. We'll create a greeting component that displays either of these components depending on whether a user is logged in. Function greeting, and it's also a stateless React component that is called greeting and takes props as a parameter, and it has a is logged in variable that looks if is logged in is one of the props and it's true. If it's true, it returns our user greeting component, and if not, it returns the guest greeting. It's basically what we had here. And then it is rendered with React DOM.render. Okay. This example renders a different greeting depending on the value of isLoggedIn prop. Okay. It's basically really straightforward if you have like that you can just use like control structures in your components.
Yeah. Interesting functional definition of components as well here.
Yeah.
We see these examples.
Yeah. But if you don't need something like state or don't have like that complex of elements, you can just write it in this short way. Yeah.
Do you want to try it on CodePen?
I guess it's not that interesting,
Yeah.
but we can do. It just depends on what variable you input there. If you have two here, it should.
Oh.
Okay, it's because it was just like a misspelling.
Okay. It was written differently
Nothing
before. Okay.
Not the example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah.
Okay, let's continue. Element variables. You can use variables to store elements. This can help you conditionally render a part of the component while the rest of the output doesn't change. Consider these two new components representing logout and login buttons. We have like a login button, which takes like a callback that is from like the props. And then we have the same for a logout button. In the example below, we will create a stateful component called login control. Stateful component is not the function declaration, but as a class. Yeah, it will render either login button or logout button depending on its current state. It will also render a greeting from the previous example. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Basically, we have a class called login control, which is a React component, and we have our constructor. We pass the props to the superclass, and then we have this. We bind our login handler and our logout handler with bind. When we set a state that is logged in is false. Okay. And yeah. Also, if in our login handler or callback, we set the state to is logged in true, and in our logout handler, we set it to false. And we have the big render function, which brings everything to life. Yeah. Okay.
Interesting. Yeah. So the render function will actually draw everything on.
Okay, it uses the current state with is logged in, and if that is true, it will show a logout button, and if not, it will show the login button.
Lucas, what is this let definition? Is it just defines a variable?
Yes, it just defines a variable in the local scope.
Or yeah. So it just creates variable but doesn't assign any value to it, right?
Yeah.
Yet.
And it is the value is assigned here in the if and else clause. Yeah. Then you have like, give me just a second. Then you have like a JSX element which renders greeting and then also passes if you are logged in or not, and then also renders the button that we have here.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then it just creates the or draws the component into the document. Okay, let's really try it on CodePen. Let's see how it works. It's already like a bunch of code here.
Yeah.
Okay, please sign up. So easy it goes without any password. Nice.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's very cool.
It's interesting. But what we now learned was basically how to use if and else in a React component. Let's see if there are some more operators and control structures we can use. But while declaring a variable and using an if statement is a fine way to conditionally render a component, sometimes you might want to use a shorter syntax. There are a few ways to inline conditions in JSX explained below. Inline if with logical a double AND operator.
Yeah.
Yeah. You may embed expressions in JSX by wrapping them in curly braces. This includes the JavaScript logical AND operator. It can be handy if you conditionally include an element. Here we have a React component called mailbox, which takes like unread messages. And
which are passed to the component, right? In a props.
yes. And it's basically an array because it has a length property. So yeah.
Wow.
Interesting.
Looks wild.
Yeah. Okay.
So if the length of messages is more than 0, then I guess what is inside of the function have to be outputted or passed further. I don't know.
Yeah, but what do you
No.
say is a function here? We don't have a function. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm lost a little bit here. With after hello, h1 hello, I'm struggling to read what it means, here. They are trying to mimic, I guess, here the if function, right? It's an if function written in one line.
Yeah.
And we have a condition here: if the length is bigger than 0.
Yeah.
And what for end stands, I'm a little bit like frustrated.
Yeah, I guess that's what then is rendered, but it's a little strange syntax, in my opinion.
Basically, if there are unread messages, you have to display the message with within h2 tag. If there are no unread messages, if all the messages are being read, then you don't have to display it anymore. So that's what the function have to do. It will check if there are unread messages. If the length is greater than 0, then it will execute what is in between. Then the function will actually run. Otherwise, it will just exit it there.
Okay, let's see what happens if we. Okay.
Okay, here you have it. Okay.
This is basically the if clause, and then after the logical AND operator, you have like the body of the clause. Yeah.
And the whole function is within the curly braces.
This is not a function. This is a JSX.
Oh, it's a if condition.
Expression.
Yeah. No, I mean the whole if function is like the whole if function with its complete body is within the curly braces. This is how you have to separate it from the rest.
You have here a JSX expression. Sorry.
Yeah, but inside, you see, after the h1 closing h1 tag, you have an opening curly brace. That's how to separate your if function as well, right?
Yeah, this is basically how you put variables into JSX, and also like short if and logical clauses. But let's continue here.
Oh my god, yeah, it's really getting complicated.
Yeah,
especially with this one-liners, you know.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. It works because JavaScript true and then the logical operator and then the expression always evaluates to expression. That is really interesting. Yeah, and false and expression always evaluates to false. Okay, interesting.
Oh, yeah. That's a hack here, you know. That's a hack.
This is really interesting. I wouldn't like. I certainly understand it, but I wouldn't like come up with something like this.
Yeah,
myself.
It's very logical. So if the left part of the end sign is true, then the expression is being executed. If the left part is false, it will not be executed. This is like what's the logic behind it, I guess, right?
Okay. Therefore, if the condition is true, the element right after the logical AND operator will appear in the output. If it is false, React will ignore and skip it.
Yeah.
Note that returning a falsy expression will still cause the element after the AND to be skipped, but will return the falsy expression. If the example below div the 0 as value will be returned by the render method. Okay.
By the way, this is our previous discussion about the end statement. Here, Bartolomeo wrote in the chat exactly what he wrote it before, and then we we narrated it. So basically, left side is if it's true, then the right side is being evaluated, and vice versa. Like no, not vice versa, but if it's false, then the function will not execute the right side or evaluate.
Yeah.
Thank you, Bartolomeo.
Okay.
Let's have a look at this example here with the render method. We are defining a variable. It's always strange to call this constant a variable, you know, but this is what we do here. We are defining variable with a name count, which is equal to 0. The value is equal to 0, and we have another a return function here with opening and closing div, and in between we have a JSX statement which goes like count and end and h1 opening and closing h1 tag, and in between there is a message and which also outputs the count number. Okay, so we have a if function here. Obviously, this is what we learned before in the example before. If count is true, and I guess true is if it's greater than 0, because if it's 0, I guess it will go to false, or if it's less than 0. What's your assumption?
I don't know. I rebuilt the example here.
Okay.
Just
that's a great way to figure out the true what actually it is.
See what happens if we have like 10. Okay, interesting.
Yeah, if you put 10, then the right side is being evaluated. If you put 0,
Yeah, then it will evaluate the left side because this is not a Boolean, but this is a number. And it will evaluate the left side of it. If we had like a false, it should like return nothing.
Yeah.
Okay, but if we have a number, then it returns the left side of this expression.
That's a super weird behavior. So is 0 is not exactly false, but it's not a true either.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting.
If you
Definitely.
put -1, what will happen?
It will be. Let's see, maybe it's not null, so okay.
Oh.
Only if it's 0, and yeah, it will happen with null. Okay, null is.
Then it's false.
false.
Null is equal to false, right?
Undefined.
Wow.
Undefined is false. And what is not a number? Let's see what happens here. Okay.
Didn't know about this one.
Yeah, not a number is basically if you have like a number overflow or something like that in JavaScript. Okay. Yeah.
But I think
not a number is not false. Yeah. It's just a number. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, that's super weird.
But let's not waste too much time here, but let's look into the next chapter, subchapter, which is inline if-else with conditional operator. Another method for conditionally rendering elements inline to use conditional operator condition, then a question mark, then if it's true, then this part will be rendered, evaluated, and if not, you have a column, and then the other part. And I frequently use this in every language that has this conditional operator. I really like it.
Yeah, this is also what I'm familiar with, more or less.
Yeah, I mean, I use it to an extent where some other programmers would also use, like, already start using the full if-else, but I really like it. In the example below, we use it to conditionally render a small block of text. We have a render method, then we have a state logged in and logged all. That is a Boolean, and if that is true, we have if it's true, it will render the word currently, and if it's not true, it will render the word not. A sentence, the user is currently logged in if it's true, and the user is not logged in if it's false. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, this is just an example. I don't know if is logged in from this and .state is logged in. Is it like really contains anything in a real example, or
it should be like an example of a Boolean. We already had like that example for previously with is logged in this login page. Yeah,
but it doesn't really read any logged in information from JavaScript, like from
this is just a variable that is stored in this .state, so it's nothing special here or nothing like predefined from JavaScript. It's just an example.
This is just a example. Okay.
Yeah, it can also be used for larger expressions, although it is less obvious what's going on. Okay, we have basically this expression is now multi-line. In here, this is the entire expression. We have the condition is logged in, which is the Boolean variable. And then we have the next line, we have the question mark. And after that, if our condition is true, we have the logout button. And if it's false, following this colon, we have this login button.
But the logout button is interestingly, it's not just a HTML tag. It's a full-blown component, right?
Yeah, that's what they are saying here, that you don't have to use it for like very simple expressions with when you just return strings, but you can also return other JSX elements and stuff like that from it.
Yeah.
So it's really interesting. Okay. Just like in JavaScript, it is up to you to choose an appropriate style based on what you and your team consider more readable. Also remember that whenever conditions become too complex, it might be a good time to extract a component. Yeah. Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Should we continue with the next subchapter?
Yeah, I can jump in. Preventing component from rendering. In rare cases, you might want a component to hide itself even though it was rendered by another component. To do this, return null instead of its render output. In the example below, the warning banner is rendered depending on the value of the prop called warn. If the value of the prop is false, then the component does not render. Okay, Lucas, now we need your help here. We have a function which is actually a component called warning banner, which reads props, which is like waiting for passing props. If then it goes into evaluation. If not, props warn. If the warn property of props is, if it's false, then it returns null.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Normally, if you have like this function declaration of a component, it should return React elements or JSX expressions, which then are compiled to elements. But if that's not the case, we will then just, if we don't return elements, but instead return null, it won't be rendered because then it will be hidden. Sorry.
So if you are creating if you are defining a component and then you are passing, or like in the process of definition, you are passing or putting a variable warn to false, it will be hidden. It will be not rendered actually.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah, interesting, and interesting in which cases we would use it. Let's see. There is another function. Sorry, go on, Lucas.
They have a warning banner here, which in most cases won't be rendered, and if then can be easily hidden with that.
So basically, if you don't want a warning banner to be displayed, you just define the warn as false, and it will be hidden. It will be not displayed.
Yeah. So
otherwise, Otherwise, you will just create it, and by default, it will go into the return, which you scrolled up. If you go a little bit upper in the scroll, other way, to the top. Here we see that a div should be created by default with a class name equal warning, and the text inside of it is warning exclamation mark. So this is a default behavior, but you can make it a hidden one. Okay, let's see how it goes there with the hidden creation.
Yeah. Basically, you have a constructor and you have a state of show warning, which is a Boolean that can be true or false. Then you have a button which can hide, which has a callback function that can hide or show the warning. And based on that state, you can show or hide the warning.
It would be super cool to see it as an example, and we have it here. Great. Let's see how it works. Oh, that's a warning. Okay, I thought there will be some kind of pop-up or something, but it's a diff, right? It's just
yeah. I mean, we could like add some box shadow or something to make it
prettify it a little bit.
But it's class here.
Yes. So, okay, we see. Interesting. Returning null from a component's render method does not affect the firing of the component's lifecycle methods. For instance, component did update, one word written in camel case, will still be called.
That is referring to one of our last chapters when we had like state and life cycle. If you have a stateful component, basically a component that is like declared as a class like this, and also if it's not visible on the screen, if it returns null, then all of the component state methods will also be called. Like can also, it will be there, but it won't be visible.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's it with this chapter, I guess, right?
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, this chapter was pretty interesting.
Should we like just continue or do a little bit of live coding? I'm not sure.
What would you like to live code if we go into the live coding session?
No, just some like small examples with what we just learned. Interesting.
Yeah, it's up to you, Lucas. I don't know. I'm fine with both ways. Or let's ask people. Please post into the chat if you would like to go to the next section, which is called also interesting keys and something. It was right. Lists and keys. What is also super interesting. Or you want to play around with the code a little bit, or let us play around with the code.
Or maybe we will just like continue with this and see that we are finishing the this documentation as soon as possible, and then start with live coding and do like a full session just messing around with the technology and start building our own components and elements.
I would probably also recommend to go through the React documentation to just get at least some information, at least some understanding of the full spectrum of React functionality, and then as soon as we can close it, I would say let's dive into the Next.JS, and there we will have immediately, I guess, examples how to create websites with Next. And this is where we can mess around with a little bit of React, because this is a requirement for Next, and a little bit of Next.
But I wouldn't.
Or do you want to mess with React after we finish the documentation? React.
Yes, I would definitely make a session with for that one, and I mean we can also then. I mean React is also not bad, and it's not a Next.js is not a replacement. For some use cases, you would then use React, and for some other use cases, you would use Next.js. So they are living kind of side by side and not like that you have to learn React and then solely use Next.js, but you use them side by side. That's how I understand it.
I understood that Next.js is actually requires React not only just for the front end stuff, but also for the internals. You know, like they have a concept of splitting content, being it rendered on the server, and some parts will be rendered by React on demand, and so on and so forth on the front end already. So because they don't use anything else. Like the only language there is JavaScript React. You know, that's it. This is how you can create everything with Next.js. I think this is just my understanding. I haven't coded anything in Next, but that would be really. But if you want, we can absolutely like finish these chapters, which are getting smaller, what is really nice and more understandable. I guess my biggest struggle so far was somewhere in chapter 5, state and life cycle, somewhere there, I guess. I don't know. I don't remember.
And this chapter was also not that long,
Yeah.
but contained a lot of information. And yeah, and I also have not learned everything that React components with the that stateful components can do. All of the methods that those React components have, like did update or component did unmount or will unmount component did mount. I don't know those methods well enough, so
These are just hooks, you know, like for, I guess, for something like garbage collection and so on and so forth, so that you can process whatever you are doing there. Yeah, and speaking of live coding after the documentation, I don't know if you want to mess with React. Is React supposed to be like, how is it called, like one-page application or something like this, that you only like bind it once to the DOM, and this is like, and the whole magic will happen just within one page? Or can you can probably split it into like different pages and so on?
Sorry, again, I didn't.
Yeah, no worries. How is it called? Like there's a term for single page applications or something like this.
You have like a routing mechanism.
Okay.
That is, you can have like different URLs, like paths, and like the fragment section of your URL can change, and you have a routing mechanism for that where you can like parse the path of your URL and extract like IDs or something from that. And yeah, I guess React also has a routing mechanism, and I'm also interested in using that, and also interested in how Next.js does this kind of thing. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there is a term, rich web application. RMI? Oh no, RWA, kind of, no idea. Yeah, I'm lost. let's jump into the next session. Let me read it. Lists and keys. This is the name of the chapter. First, let's review how you transform lists in JavaScript. Given the code below, we use the map function to take an array of numbers and double their values. We assign the new array returned by map to the variable doubled and log it. So what we have here in the example, we have a variable called numbers, which is an array of numbers. And another variable is called doubled, which is equal to numbers.map. We have this funny arrow function here. Lucas, you are the best to understand. Can you explain what's going on here?
Basically, you have some. Sorry, we have someone who I have to admit. Okay. Hi. Someone new in the meeting. Okay. Basically, we have some methods that are predefined for arrays, and one of them is map. And map takes each element, and you can then do something with each item in the list, and it returns like another array. And this array, what this does is that it takes like each item from the list and then doubles it with ×2. Yeah. But we could also do something more advanced with it. It's
So
just
we could doubled. So let me understand. Doubled is in another array, right? Which will be created.
Yeah, this is another array.
Yeah.
Let's take this example just, okay?
Mm-hmm. And it's a pure JavaScript. It has nothing to do with React whatsoever.
Yeah. Can you see my HTML console, JavaScript console?
No. Can you maybe shift the tab to present the one? Okay.
Okay, I will try to just show like the window instead of it. Can you now see it?
We can see more. Yeah, we can see actually. Yeah.
Okay, nice. Okay, we have this array. Then we have the .map method, and then we can let's say we make something more advanced here, like that, which is like kind of template string in JavaScript, where we do this. Then what will follow is, sorry. Okay, we transform this to this array. We have this. Map is basically a method where we manipulate each of the items in the array and then return a different array from it. Basically, like you may all know, like this, we have a for each, and if a for each would return another array, this is basically what map does.
And at first, like map is an integrated function of JavaScript, right?
Yeah, as well as many others. You can see
there are
lots of things in array. Okay, let's continue here. Okay.
This code logs 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, the array containing these numbers, to the console. Okay. Oh,
sorry.
No worries.
I will stop presenting and will switch to
the tab.
Just the tab.
Yeah.
It's more comfortable because. Yeah. Okay. Work better now.
Yeah. In React, transforming arrays into lists of elements is nearly identical, rendering multiple components. You can build collections of elements and include them in JS6 using curly braces. Below, we loop through the numbers array using the JavaScript map function. We return an li tag element for each item. Li stands for list item. It's an HTML tag. Finally, we assign the resulting array of elements to list items. So let's inspect the code here. We have a variable called numbers, which contains an array of numbers from 1 to 5, and another variable called list items, which is equal to numbers.map. And here it gets interesting.
Yeah.
Every element will be transformed into a JSX expression, but basically a string, which includes an opening and closing li element, and inside it will have the number as a string representation. So we will have as output, we will have a list of items in HTML format, I guess, right? Can we just display it in not in we can try it. You see below there is a try it on CodePen, so maybe we can see how it works. Yeah, this is how it works. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, nothing very special. Like
we cannot see this li opening and closing li tags because these are HTML tags. They are in the source code, or if you would inspect it. But yeah, now you inserted the months name of the month.
Just messing around.
Yeah. Okay.
Back. Yeah.
So the list items variable is actually an array of strings.
Not strings, but JSX expressions. Therefore, React elements. List items is a contains React elements.
Okay. Interesting. We include the entire list items array inside a UL element and render it to the DOM. This is what we did, and tried it out. Okay, let's go further. This code displays a bullet list of numbers between 1 to 5. Okay, basic list components. Usually you would render lists inside a component. Okay, interesting. We can refactor the previous example into a component that accepts an array of numbers and outputs a list of elements. Okay, here we have an example. It's a function called number list, which is actually also a component. We have a variable numbers, which is equal to props.numbers. We have a variable list items. Basically, it's exactly the same what we had before, which transforms, and it returns, the component returns. Oh, yeah, it has an it's a properly formatted this time. It has an opening and closing UL unordered list. UL stands for unordered list. It's a set of HTML tags, opening and closing ones, and in between we will display list items, which will just be a list of li opening and closing li elements, which will include numbers. Okay. And then we have a constant numbers equal from an array from 1 to 5, and we display render the React DOM. Do we have an example here? No, I guess not.
Oh. The interesting fact here is doesn't do anything different than the last thing, but it takes the array as a parameter instead of having it inside this one. It's basically that is what changed here.
This is what you would do, right? Like this time you would call it with numbers from 1 to 5. Maybe next time it will be like 1 to 10 or so. So you want to keep it variables outside probably of the component, so that the component is like a kind of abstract.
Yeah.
Not with hard-coded numbers or values and so on. Okay. When you run this code, you will be given a warning that a key should be provided for list items. A key. A key is a special string attribute you need to include when creating lists of elements. We will discuss why it's important in the next section. Let's assign a key to our list items inside numbers.map function and fix the missing key issue. So we have here a function called number list, which is a component. We have numbers variable, which takes the very same thing from the props list items, all the old stuff which we had before.
But this is basically what's new, that we have an attribute key for every li item, li element.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just an HTML geek, right? It's nothing what has to do with React, I guess.
It has to do with React.
Oh, it has to do with React. Okay.
It's a warning. React requires keys for every list item, so therefore we have to provide it. So it's definitely a yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
for some reason React doesn't like empty li elements without property key equal to something.
Yeah, it's basically what we had here in our previous example. Warning: each child in a list should have a unique key prop. See.
Probably they want to have it addressable somehow.
Yeah.
Well, okay.
Number key is we would just here. Okay. It should now not clear, and maybe let's do like a new line somewhere to re-render it. Okay. No warning here. Okay.
It doesn't have a warning. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm.
Okay.
Can you just show the HTML code of this thing? Oh no, you cannot, right? It's a dynamic.
Resulting.
Yeah, it's
I'm
a dynamic.
not sure if I can show it to you. Yes.
Maybe with an inspector.
It's just a React thing, so it won't be in the resulting.
It's a dynamic code, right? It's not a static code which can be displayed.
It's somehow needed by React and won't be in the resulting DOM, just a thing for React. Okay. We have the next chapter. That is.
It said that it will be not in the resulting, like underlying DOM.
Yeah, it's just for React internally.
Wow.
Maybe it will be clarified in this chapter.
Okay.
That is called keys. To identify which items have changed, are added or are removed. Keys should be given to the elements inside the array to give the elements a stable identity. Now it really makes sense. So React doesn't have to render the whole list all the time. They can see with those unique identifiers if like a key has changed or is updated, is deleted, or is completely new. So they don't have to re-render the lists every time. Like, for example, you have a list with thousands of elements and you don't want to render it the entire thing like every few seconds if the data changes. So you just can like re-render the one item that actually has changed, for example.
That's super interesting, but it's only like a requirement for the lists. That's also
Yeah, and also for React, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the best way to pick a key is to use a string that uniquely identifies a list item among its siblings. Most often you would use IDs from your data as keys. Like if you fetch data from the database, you could just use those IDs you would have there. When you don't have stable IDs for rendering items, you may use the item index as a key, as a last resort. So if you have the map function, you have an optional second argument that is index, so you always know which item of the array you are dealing with, and you can use that as an ID as well. Just a numeric ID that is just 0 to like the length -1 of your items in the list.
Yeah, that's something what we just learned today. Really very interesting about React with these keys,
Yeah, but they don't recommend using keys for using indexes for keys if the order of items may change. This can negatively impact performance and may cause issues with component state. Check out Robert Pokorny's article for an in-depth explanation of the negative impacts of using but I'm really interested in that to go that much in depth.
I'm just looking up as you go through it, if there is a function in JavaScript which can always or every time you call it, would generate a random GUID, something like this, like
But
global.
I'm not sure if that is like if you always create a hash value that takes, I guess, more than to just use an index which also has negative impacts on performance. So I'm not sure if generating hash values is a better choice. If you choose not to assign an explicit key to the items, then React will default to using indexes as keys. Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. Here is an in-depth explanation about why keys are necessary if you're interested in learning more. We'll just open it side by side. But I'm not sure if that's what we should focus on.
No, let's not go deeper than that.
Extracting components with keys. Keys only make sense if in the context of the surrounding array. For example, if you extract a list item component, you should keep the key on the list item elements in the array rather than the LE element in the list item itself. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, if you basically wrap your list items with your LI elements, HTML text with something else, you should always keep the key on the element that is like directly in the list, not some childs of that element.
Interesting.
Yeah. Okay. That is what is incorrect, because you have the key in another element in a component inside of a component, which is another element. So you should probably pack this one here to the list item, which is inside the UL, which makes more sense. Yeah. Okay. The correct usage is, okay, it's that you put it here in the actual list item. Yeah. Does it make sense to everyone?
Yeah, I guess so. Let's see how it works. Try it
Yeah.
on code.
Basically, you have to add it to the direct children of the UL element and not like children of the children, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Because list items is a list of those list items and not the li elements. So you have to put it in here because those are the direct ancestors of UL, not those.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. You have to put it here instead of there. Yeah. Okay. A good rule of thumb is that elements inside the map call need keys. Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's interesting. Keys must only be unique among sublinks. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is perfectly okay to use for as a keys, because you can have like multiple lists, which will all, like a lot of them will have the same keys in one document, but it's pretty much like okay, seems like. Let's see what they write about it. Keys used within arrays should be unique among their sublinks. However, they don't need to be globally unique. Okay, we can use the same keys when we produce two different arrays. Function block, what is a component as well? It includes a variable sidebar, which has a opening and closing UL on unordered list definition here. And also a statement of props.posts.map, which will create an array of li elements here with the keys with post.id, which will be probably numbers. The IDs will be numbers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we have another one, variable called content, which has div with a key equal to post ID. Okay, this is just another array, which also reuses the post IDs, which seem to be also okay for React. It will be the same IDs, but yeah, it should be okay. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And at the end, it will return both lists, one after another, separating them with just one HR, human resources. No, how is it like translated? HR, horizontal
Rule.
something, rule.
Yeah.
Okay, ruler or rule.
I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, for the sake of accuracy.
I will open the example here. Okay.
It's horizontal rule. You're right. So what you will have there, it's just a horizontal line. That's it, which goes from the left side of the document to the right side of the document. Here it is, above hello world and between installation and hello world. Okay.
I think it's not that difficult to understand that your keys don't need to be really unique IDs, but have to be unique in the array you are using, not in
Well, that makes
in
life
the
a little
list.
bit, yeah, it makes the life a little bit easier, because if it would be unique ID across the whole document, I guess you have to be like become way too creative, on occasions to keep it unique. But
Okay.
could be also a requirement by any framework. What they require here is like their React way of doing it.
Yeah.
This is how they decided to do it. This is not
But
like coming from JavaScript or anything.
but what I find much more important is this. Keys serve as a hint to React, but they don't get passed to your components. So if you want to have this ID for every component, you have to put it there in another way. Like, for example, if you want to call it like ID,
Yeah.
the
Because
key.
key is an interesting property. It's not like official. I mean, you can make it. That's okay with HTML5. You can create any
It doesn't have to do anything with HTML. It's just JSX and React internal.
Yeah.
It's
So you cannot rely on it. You cannot reuse
no,
it.
and also this post component will not be in the actual HTML. It's just
That's
within
true.
React and the virtual DOM. And yeah, so
It will
this is
be
important to know here.
yeah, it's just a component. It's a reference to the component.
Yeah. But if you have keys in a list, they are not passed to the actual component you're dealing with. So you have to, if you want to pass this ID that you have saved in the key, you would have to do this in an extra variable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Embedding map in JSX. In the examples above, we declared a separate list items variable and included it in JSX. Yeah. We have a function number list, which is a React component in the function declaration. It takes props, and then we have like a variable that is called numbers, and we assign props.numbers to it. Then we create a list from it with numbers.map, and we create each list item to it for it. Then we have a key and a value. Okay. And this is then assigned to list items, and then we return it as another JSX expression in UL tags, and inside it we have our list items, the variable we first mapped. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also a much shorter way to write this, so you don't have to assign list items to an extra variable, but you can also do this inside JSX like this. Because in JSX, if you write curly braces inside that, you can just write JavaScript, and using it like this. So you put in your numbers.map here, and then the list item. So basically, if you would use this, the list items you save here, and put it in here, it's basically what they're doing here.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. Sometimes this results in clearer code, but this style can also be abused. Like in JavaScript, it is up to you to decide whether it is worth extracting a variable for readability. Keep in mind that if the map body is too nested, it might be a good time to extract a component. So if this code gets any messier than this, you should probably like extract it and not use too much nesting in those JSX tags, although it works.
Okay.
Okay, that's the end of the article of this chapter.
Mm-hmm. I just look right now at the contents, and we are at chapter 8, lists and keys. We have yet chapter 9, forms left. Chapter 10, lifting state up. 11, composition versus inheritance. Sounds complicated. And 12, thinking in React. So it's probably something like general, like blah blah.
I guess
So yeah,
it's still like 2 sessions to.
it looks like 2 session more. Yeah, probably we will. But the forms part looks like fun.
I don't
I
know. I'm not sure if forms are any fun in HTML or the web.
It's at least more or less understandable. You know, forms are. This is what we know from HTML, and most of the times are pretty much like straightforward. But yeah, it could be like that's very interesting, like how React will handle the forms, and they are like usually the forms in HTML are being submitted with either post, get, or there are a few more methods. With React, they will probably stay within the same page. They will be not like it will not open another session. You know, when you usually submit form, it will go to the next session and will pass the result, like the form values and so on and so forth. But we will see how it will be done with React. Probably it will, yeah, just stay within the same page and will not refresh the page and so on and so forth. That's why I say it's interesting.
But as I understood it, it basically depends on what kind of action you have for your forms.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting.
Yeah. But yeah, maybe we can do chapter 9, 10, and 11 next week. So then we have like just like the last one, which doesn't seem like there is lots of content here, and then we can do just thinking in React and some live coding, and yeah. But next week there will be.
So you suggest that we
Yeah.
grab some energy drinks for the next session and really push hard this 3 or even maybe 4 chapters. I don't know. Like I don't know how.
I mean, 3 chapters is good enough for one day.
Sure.
I mean,
and you want to leave thinking in React, which is I looked at it. It's not very short, and I don't know, like I guess it's just general principles. Some.
Yeah, but maybe we can also do a larger wrap up of everything we already learned. So
Oh yeah. So
we can combine it with the thinking and React part, because yeah, it sounds really interesting. And
absolutely. Yeah.
Any comments, or someone wants to raise their voice? And
Do we have survivors in the call? Yeah, there are a few people who stayed until the end. Thanks for that.
Yeah, I recently saw the TV show Community, which is about a learning community in a community college, and I feel like this a little bit with our calls. It's like a learning group.
Where did you watch this one?
I think on Netflix or something.
It's called Community, right? Okay.
Yeah, it's a very popular show.
I will look it up. What is it? I think somewhere I was looking at information about general like communities, and it kind of came across a few times this name of the show, because it's just exactly. Another thing, when I look up the word community or like something about online or in-person communities, on-site communities, I see a lot of results for actual geographical communities, in a sense that people live in one place. It could be just a municipality or like town or something like this. Arthur's writing thanks. It was very interesting. And I couldn't see the rest. Let's see the rest. As always. Oh, yeah. Thank you for this comment. That's really nice. You're welcome. So yeah, I come across a lot of like communities where people live. Like someone could say the word community about like their village or something like this.
Mm.
Yeah, you're welcome, Bartolome.
Thanks for tuning in.
Absolutely. So what will be your week, Lucas? Any like general stuff you can share about it, the upcoming weeks, or any tech events which we shouldn't miss?
I don't have tech events. I have to deal with like health insurance and all those stuff.
Wow,
There are
yeah,
lots
okay.
of things with my company that I have to deal with. Not
Okay.
so funny, but yeah.
But the health insurance in Germany is generally okay, right? There is no like
Yeah.
there are some formalities
okay.
you have to settle, once you
Yeah.
shift from employed position to self-employment and stuff like this. So who will be paying the fees and some if in an employed situation the employer have to take care of it, it they will deduce your fees for insurance like from your salary. But if you are self-employed or if you run your own company, then you have to take care of it. At the end, it will be almost the same amount of money, but you will have to pay it from what you receive as a salary, I guess, right?
Yeah. And yeah. But that's only the case if you are what they call like a full entrepreneur. And
yeah. And you
if you have like a majority stake in the company, so
yeah, you are eligible to of this status if you hold at least 50% of in a company.
Yes, and are also the
or
managing
higher.
director.
Yeah. So up until two people who are holding each 50% in a company, you have a privilege to decide how you want to pay your taxes. And if you like want to pay insurances like some I would say silly insurances like unemployment insurance, where if you are a software developer, the chances are pretty low that you will get unemployed, I guess. There are some chances, of course, but in some cases for some people it's just wasted money to pay every month, or some other social like security, whatever, like some other taxes which you must not pay according to the law if you have a company, if you run your own company and have at least like 50% of um, ownership of it, and can make decisions for the company. So there, what we have in our community, the Cloud Study Network, we have on Thursday. Yeah, we have on Thursday a bootcamp which will be provided by a consulting company which deals, and the bootcamp will be on the chaos engineering. That should be very interesting. Everyone who will attend will receive and complete the bootcamp. It will be like 2 hours long. Will receive a certificate of completion from or issued by this company. What is nice, and we have 5 t-shirts as a giveaway. We will raffle them off at the end of the event, provided by the company called Gremlin, which is a provider of chaos engineering, of a chaos engineering platform, which we will be using at the bootcamp. So yeah, make
I've
sure.
never heard of the term.
Yeah, that's. I wonder how you haven't heard of it and still actively involved in the community, because we throw these buzzwords like pretty frequently, especially the last like month or two.
Somehow I was blind.
No worries. So basically, I can say a couple of words about it, about the buzzword and what's behind it. The chaos engineering is something when you disable parts of your system or the whole system on purpose, uh, by some kind of tooling which you would use to simulate that you have a breakdown of some parts of your system, or like some kind of an unexpected loads. And that's why would you do this? To see at first like how technically your system reacts, what goes down first, like what can be taken, like what can be fixed, like for future breakdowns. And the second aspect, how your team reacts on this whole thing, if you are prepared for attacks and stuff like this. So it's a pretty interesting stuff once you have a productive system going on, I guess. Or maybe you can like design this stuff like at the beginning, like in the early stage already, because it will be messy. Like for example, it's a great example, the meetup.com website, which we bring down very often, or not down, but bring up very often as an example of a bad productive system, which we have to use it because we run most of our events. We list them, it's there at meetup.com, but it's so buggy. It throws you like every 10th refresh, it will show you expose their bad gateway which they cannot get rid of. Just kidding. But yeah, indeed it's really bad, and they seem to be not able to fix it. And you have planes going on there, right?
There is like thunderstorm.
Oh, thunderstorm. Okay, I thought it was some kind of plane.
No, today is a very strange weather. I don't know.
Okay, Lucas, so should we return to our stuff and finish Sunday?
There is also another event in this Cloud Study Network, free
Which one?
Kubernetes Bootcamp. What is that all
Yeah.
about? Is that like a rerun of the last ones from last week, or is it like incremental?
Yeah, it was it turned out to be the second part. We didn't plan it before. The first part was this week, this Friday, in kind of like noon time, European time. So we did have 2 hours for this stuff for the Kubernetes bootcamp, but we didn't manage to. We managed just exactly the half of the content. So we will be continuing next week. It's not generally about Kubernetes. It's specifically about the 2 certifications, which is Certified Kubernetes Administrator and Certified Kubernetes Application Developer. These are like, there will be some details provided and tips and hints how to prepare for the exam.
Are those like certificates on edX.org?
No, that's our like official Linux Foundation certifications, and Linux Foundation together with CNCF run the whole Kubernetes project. So this is as official as it can get,
Yeah, but I saw some courses on edX.org by them.
Yeah, that could be. edX is a pretty reputable platform where a lot of providers, like first-tier providers, put courses there. In many cases, they would put them for free there. Linux Foundation has also a set of amazing courses created for Kubernetes, but many other topics as well, which they are just dealing with, So yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. Something what we would sooner or later have to dive into, Kubernetes, what is like super interesting technology and framework. I don't work with this like on a day-to-day basis, but I mean, everyone is talking about it.
Yeah. There are thousands of people in the Cloud Study Network that work with it every day.
Yeah. So let's call it a day. Okay. Thanks everyone for being in the call with us. It was as always a pleasure to not be alone with this.
Yeah.
And
thanks.
same day, same time. I'm going to, after we finish the event, I'm going to schedule it, and I guess tomorrow or day after tomorrow it will be announced in the Cloud Study Network, and this is how you can join. The call link will be the same, so you can save it in your calendar, like as a series maybe. At the same time, the URL will not change for the call, and yeah, we are looking forward to see you next week.
Or if you give us your email address, I could also add you directly to my calendar, the calendar events.
Yeah,
So you can somehow.
feel free to post it into the chat, your email, if you want, and Lucas
Yeah.
will take care of it, so that
But-
you will receive an official invite for your Google Calendar.
So you don't have to use Meetup, which where I always miss the notifications, for example.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks. I already got one email address.
Okay, I'm finishing right now the stream at first.